My interest in gardening started years ago when I was a teenager, when my father and I built a fantastic fish pond with natural rocks around there and indigenous plants, and particularly we planted a Protea leucospermum. Fynbos here, particularly in the Western Cape, it's a unique group of plants that grow just here in the Western Cape. Sandy soil, and that's what interests me, the type of plants that grow, they're unique to this particular area, about something like 8,500 species of natural fynbos here in the Cape.
South Africa has one of the smallest but richest vegetation. It has over 9,000 species of plants. Fynbos is known for its exceptional level of biodiversity. However, this beautiful diverse vegetation is threatened by a number of factors.
Fynbos is such an amazing biome. It's incredibly diverse. It's comparable internationally to the rainforests of Borneo, to the coral reefs of the tropics, to the Amazon rainforest. In the last 30 years, I think there's been something like a 34% increase in fire frequency in the southwestern Western Cape. And that potentially has a major effect on the vegetation of the fynbos, because some plants may not be able to grow up and reproduce before the fire comes through again. So some species actually do quite well with fire, like the Cape rock jumper. Because it's an insect-eating species, it needs open land to forage for insects on the ground. But other species like Cape sugarbirds and orange-breasted sunbirds actually are probably threatened by frequent fire. So although fire is needed for fynbos, we don't want it too often. Probably every 10 to 20 years is best.
We have many threats on this tiny, tiny little ecosystem. We've got the development which is happening all the time. Human populations continue to grow, and there's always a demand for space for housing. But then there are other more subtle threats. For example, the encroachment by alien vegetation, largely plants, but also now alien animals moving in and eliminating our indigenous species. And then there's all types of pollution which result directly from human activity. Some of these are in fynbos rivers and streams. So the combination of all these factors is not good for fynbos.
These challenges that are faced by fynbos do not only affect plants, but also insects and birds that live in this vegetation.
Insects have various roles in ecosystems, depending very much on the type of insects. But one of the most obvious relationships between insects and plants is pollination. This is a positive relationship, and most plants, apart from a few, depend very heavily on insects for pollination. Many of the fynbos proteas would become extinct, so we depend on the ants.
Apart from the frequent fires and climate changes, urbanization is one of the major threats to fynbos and its inhabitants.
The fynbos endemic birds are actually quite vulnerable to several things. And one of the things that my team is looking at the moment is quite a strange disease that Cape sugarbirds get. It's called avian pox. It's a virus that gets into their legs, and this virus gets into the scales on their legs, and it grows so that eventually you'll see a kind of scaly, rough, thickened leg on a bird. And ultimately, I think, although we don't know, I think that can kill the bird.
Phoebe feels that with a more active approach, people can help preserve the fynbos.
Fynbos conservation. Anyone who lives around the fynbos can take a conscious decision to establish a little garden. It doesn't matter if they're living in the suburbs, the leafy suburbs, or living in townships. Planting indigenous species is really important.